anything, buy the best book on the subject, study the fundamentals, and apply it in your context.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Maudie Gambhir. It is checkmate Imran Khan, the Pakistani superstar idol who owed his years in power to the godfathers in the Pakistan Army, has been abandoned and now imprisoned by those who once nurtured him. Imran Khan made a fatal mistake when he thought that he had become more powerful than his mentors, the Pakistan Army. He has learned his lesson and paid a terrible price. Imran's politics has been effectively strangled by Pakistan's political parent, that's the military. That too, just 10 days before Pakistan goes to vote. Imran Khan has been convicted again. First, he was handed a 10-year jail term for leaking sensitive state secrets and then was sentenced to 14 years in prison on charges of illegally selling state gifts. This means the cricketer star turned politician is barred from fighting elections next week. And it is a message to Pakistani voters. Don't even bother voting for Imran Khan's party, the PTI, because hell hath no fury like the Pakistan Army scorned. You see, in 2022, the then Prime Minister Imran Khan was deposed in a parliamentary vote of no confidence, and since then, Imran Khan, sitting behind bars, and his party have faced hundreds of civilian and criminal charges, some for corruption, some for treason, some for spying, and some for fraud. And then 2 weeks ago, Khan's party lost its election symbol. The latest verdict was as hurried as it was chaotic. And here's how it unfolded. Last Saturday, the court replaced his lawyers with state counsel. On Monday, the defense wrapped up its case. On Tuesday, Khan was found guilty of making public contents of confidential diplomatic cables. The diplomatic cable that was sent from Pakistan envoy in the US to Islamabad. And that is the case that has landed him 10 years in jail. And a day later, an anti-graft court jailed him and his wife, Bushra Khan, for 14 years each on charges of selling state gifts illegally. The verdict, by the way, also includes a 10-year disqualification from holding public office. His wife, popularly known as Bushra Bibi, gave herself up to arrest shortly after the verdict. It was not immediately clear if the two sentences for Khan would run concurrently, but his wife's conviction is a clear attempt to pressurize Imran Khan further. And following the verdict against Khan and his wife, cops were deployed outside his party's offices in Islamabad as well as Lahore. Khan's supporters are furious. They have condemned the verdict and called it unfair.
I would like to say that this verdict against Imran Khan is a very bad decision because the whole nation knows he is an honest person. Whatever is happening with him is not fair.
We all know who is honest and who are the looters who have looted this country. Imran Khan is our last hope. The whole system is trying to eliminate him.
Imran Khan was already banned from running the upcoming polls, but let's not forget, he remains hugely popular among the voters. And that is why the latest development does not come as a surprise. Imran Khan's fate was sealed as soon as he started taking on the army. He had called former Pakistan Army Chief General Bajwa a traitor. To describe the man in charge of a country's security, a traitor is no small charge. And Bajwa, once Imran Khan's mentor, never forgave his former protege. And then he started holding mass rallies against military rule. No prizes for guessing which side prevailed. In late 2022, he was even shot in the leg by unknown assailants. It is unlikely that the assailant will ever be identified, let alone tried in court and punished. During one of his public rallies, Imran Khan blamed his country's notorious spy masters in the ISI for the attack on his life. He called it a failed assassination attempt on him. Khan has repeatedly attacked the Pakistan Army leadership. So, of course, the Pakistan Army went on a drive to wipe him and his party out. If at one point Pakistan Army believed Imran Khan to be their savior, the bad romance made him their nemesis. Khan has been meshed in dozens of cases. Khan and his party have had to face a brutal military-backed crackdown, and this has included arrests of hundreds of his supporters, his party members, and his key aides. Pakistan's powerful political parent is the military, and for decades, by the way, it has held sway over Pakistan's politics. Of course, they deny any charges made by Imran Khan, but here's what you must know about Pakistan. The NAB, or the Anti-Graft Agency of Pakistan that tried Imran Khan, has investigated, tried, and jailed at various times all prime ministers since 2008. This also includes Khan's main political rival, Nawaz Sharif, whose party is considered the frontrunner to win next week's national election. And at this point, it has become a rite of passage. Every prime minister has had a fallout with the Pakistan Army. The country's first elected prime minister, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he was hanged. His daughter, Benazir Bhutto, she was dismissed twice as a prime minister. Her assassination by a suicide bomber was never fully investigated. Now, in the past, retaliation against politicians who have challenged the army has been swift and merciless. But the fate of the PTI is nothing as compared to the fate of Baloch activists. Thousands of political workers have disappeared. Where have they gone? No one knows. No one is telling, but everyone knows that they have been dispatched by the army into oblivion. And what's more, no court in Pakistan or mainstream political party is interested in their plight. There is only one message. In Pakistan, Governments come and governments go. The Pakistan Army rules forever. Civilian politicians may be allowed to sit in office if it suits the bosses in uniform, but it is the army which is in permanent power. Ukraine is not only fighting Russia, there is a war going on within the country. And this one is for power. It's between the president, Volodymyr Zelensky, and his commander-in-chief for the army. Zelensky wants Valery Zelensky gone. But things are not quite going his way. Zelensky has plenty of supporters, both at home as well as abroad. Multiple reports said that the Ukrainian president had fired Zelensky. But he had to take a U-turn. And why is that? Well, because of pressure from his military top brass, also from his Western allies. And here's what had happened. On Monday, Zelensky summoned Zelensky for a face-to-face meeting. The army commander-in-chief gave presidential advisors a tough pill to swallow. He told them their military assessments were more hopeful than realistic. And Zelensky was anyway not on good terms with President Zelensky, and it seems his latest remarks only made things worse. Valery Zelensky was told to resign. And when he refused to do so, Zelensky said he would sign a decree dismissing him. And after the meeting, Zelensky returned to his office and reportedly informed his deputies that he had been fired. He told one of the officers that he is packing his things. How exactly did it come down to this? What did Zelensky do to lose Zelensky's favor? You see, Zelensky's job has been hanging by a thread ever since Ukraine's overhyped counteroffensive failed, and his essay published in The Economist last fall did not quite help his cause. In this article, the Army General declared that the war has reached a stalemate, and this, you see, was not in line with Zelensky's hopeful assertions of progress. And more recently, the two publicly disagreed over another big decision. As you may already know, Ukraine has been planning to draft 500,000 men to replenish the army. Zelensky and Zelensky had differing opinions on who should be responsible for this draft, the civilian leadership or the military leadership. Because whichever leaders are associated with conscription, they are going to receive backlash from the citizens. The feud between Zelensky and Zelensky had been simmering for a while, and now it has boiled over. The news of Zelensky's sacking came at a very crucial time. Russia has intensified its attacks along the front lines, and Ukrainian troops are facing challenging, harsh winter without Western supplies. But the decision could be more personal than political. Is Zelensky's firing simply motivated by military and strategic considerations? Or is it driven by emotions and jealousy? You see, after nearly 2 years of the war, Zelensky's approval ratings are higher than Zelensky's, and this has fueled speculation that the military commander will run for political office. The elections, remember, are suspended as per the martial law. But analysts say that if the elections were to resume, the general could be a big challenge. Prominent opposition figures have started aligning themselves with General Zelensky. And among them is Ukraine's former president and a leading opposition figure, Petro Poroshenko. He was quick to weigh in on the rumors of Zelensky's ouster. He said that the military commander has become the personification of the unity needed in Ukraine. Senior commanders and international partners have also expressed concern, and this includes the US and the UK. No doubt, a president is entitled to change a commander if he loses confidence in him. But removing a man as popular as Zelensky, both among soldiers and the public, comes with political and military risks. If Zelensky would have fired Zelensky for good, his leadership would have come under question, especially given the way how clumsily Zelensky has handled it. But now that he has taken a U-turn, it only makes him look weak. You see, as usual, there are no easy wins in this war. And on the other side of the border, Russian President Vladimir Putin also faces an enemy within the country. Not in his political ranks, but beyond the Kremlin. It is the Russians who are fighting for Ukraine. You heard that right. Yes, some Russians themselves are fighting against their homeland. Many have joined a battalion. This battalion was formed last summer by a Russian opposition group. It's called the Civic Council. Now, what do they want? Essentially, to democratize Russia. You see, they are fed up with President Putin's leadership, and to achieve their goal, they are even okay with Russia breaking up into pieces. So how big is this battalion? How is it fighting Russia? According to the group's coordinator, 50 fighters are currently in training or battling in Ukraine. Another 40 are being checked over by Ukraine security services as they wait to cross the border. And reports say thousands others want to join the fight against Moscow. The Civic Council boasts that it receives up to 10 applications every day. Those who want to sign up are asked to depart to a third country for safety reasons. And from there, it takes months to process an application. You see, since the beginning of the war, hundreds of Russians have turned on their country and joined Ukrainian forces. This is according to the International Crisis Group. These Russian troops are officially part of Ukraine's International Legion. They have Ukrainian Defense Ministry's permission to fight. They even use Ukraine's weaponry. And most of the recruits hail from Russia's North Caucasus, which are majority Muslim regions. They have long advocated for separation from the Kremlin. And then there are ethnic Russians who are fighting on behalf of Ukraine. And some are simply sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause. The motives are diverse. The goal is the same, however, and that is the ouster of Putin and a change of government. Have you heard of the Mischief Reef? It is an atoll in the South China Sea, and since 1995, this reef is under Chinese control. There is a Chinese military base in the Mischief Reef, and China is militarizing this South China Sea reef even further. About 200 vessels have recently been spotted around the Mischief Reef. 200 of them. And who are on board these ships? What are they doing in the middle of nowhere? Do the ships belong to China's maritime militia? Perhaps. But there are also some Chinese Coast Guard boats, and this deployment has alarmed the Philippines. Why, you ask? Just look at the map. This is where the Mischief Reef is located. It is 250 kilometers or 130 nautical miles west of the Filipino island of Palawan. And guess what? This reef is within the Philippines' EEZ, Exclusive Economic Zone. Ideally, this is supposed to be Manila's fishing ground, but now it is a Chinese military base, breathing down Manila's neck. Have a look at the map again. It's not just Palawan that the Mischief Reef is close to. It is very close to the second Thomas Shoal. If you have been following what's happening in the South China Sea, then you would know that the second Thomas Shoal is a flashpoint in the South China Sea. The Philippines controls the second Thomas Shoal. China claims it. In the year 1999, the Philippines grounded a World War II vessel, the BRP Sierra Madre, in the second Thomas Shoal. Manila also stationed troops on the rusty ship. This was the Philippines' way of reinforcing its claim on what it calls Ayungin. Now, over the year, Chinese mischief has made it very difficult for Manila to send supplies to its troops at the second Thomas Shoal. China has been attacking the supply ships, from laser gunning Filipino ships, firing water cannon, executing dangerous maneuvers, to confronting Philippine ships and deliberately colliding with them. Beijing, you see, has done everything to target Filipino vessels. The Philippines says Chinese vessels are deployed to different parts of this waterway to create mischief. In December, when Manila accused China of serious escalation at sea, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said its moves were quote-unquote professional, reasonable and legal. Last Saturday, the Philippines airdropped supplies to its ship. China released a statement claiming it had made quote-unquote temporary special arrangements to allow the delivery of supplies by air. Basically, China was saying it has allowed Manila to airdrop supplies. But the question is, who is China to give this permission? The Philippines also is asking this very question. The Philippines' National Security Council spokesperson, Jonathan Malaya, said, and I'm quoting, "We do not need to get the permission of anyone, including the Chinese Coast Guard. If we bring supplies through whatever means, whether it's through ship or by air, we don't need to ask permission from any country." Now, this happened on Monday. And now you have China increasing its deployment in the Mischief Reef. Does the story add up? And there's more. The increased deployment coming at a time when the Philippines and Vietnam are joining hands in the South China Sea. And what is their plan, you ask? The two countries have signed agreements. The memoranda talk about two things. One being incident prevention in the South China Sea, and number two, maritime cooperation. The Philippines and Vietnam plan to start a communication link between their coast guards. The announcement was made during the Filipino President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s state visit to Hanoi. And what happens next? Will this cooperation anger Beijing? Now, China claims all of the South China Sea, and this claim cuts into the exclusive economic zones of multiple countries, namely Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei and Indonesia. China muscle flexing in these waters had turned the waters into a theater of conflict. And our next story is from India. It concerns India's defense preparedness, its capability to counter threats on two fronts. The first one is Pakistan, a permanent nuisance, and the second is China, a perpetual bully. And both these countries have remained a constant source of worry for New Delhi. But every time they've crossed the line, India has also taught them a lesson. The President of India, Draupadi Murmu, said something along these lines in a recent address during a speech in the Indian Parliament. She said, be it terrorism or expansionism, India is giving a strong response to both challenges. She said this in an indirect reference to Pakistan and China without taking any names. Remember, India and China have been locked in a standoff in Ladakh. It's been over 2 years and China continues to pose a threat. Plus, China is also trying to intrude in the Indian Ocean. It frequently sends warships there in the garb of conducting scientific research. But US think tanks warn that China is conducting this research for military purposes. Plus, China is also trying to persuade island nations in the Indian Ocean to abandon China, the Maldives being one of them. The recent deterioration of India-Maldives ties and the docking of a Chinese research ship in the island, sparking concerns about the resurgence of Chinese strategy of string of pearls. And as a response, India has stepped up its naval surveillance here in response to Chinese threats. And if we speak of Pakistan, the threat of state-sponsored terror attacks from Pakistan has been a constant. Islamabad is still trying to push terror into Kashmir. It is still trying to destabilize India's national security. notwithstanding that its own house is in complete disarray. And with a focus on these two threats, India is boosting its combat readiness and taking steps towards self-reliance in defense. In November last year, it gave a go-ahead to major projects worth at least 2.2 lakh crore. The projects include the purchase of more light combat aircraft, light combat helicopters, artillery guns, anti-ship missiles, along with an upgrade of Sukhoi 30 fighter jets. In fact, the Republic Day parade on Kartavya Path in New Delhi on the 26th of January showcased India's cultural diversity, women power, and military might. The occasion was also a tacit display of the efforts to indigenize India's military hardware in line with the Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India slogan. And this slogan now defines India's defense production and weapons acquisition programs. On display were missiles, radar systems, weapons platforms like the main battle tank Arjun, K9 Vajra howitzers, and Nag anti-tank guided missiles. They all rolled past the saluting dais representing India's homegrown defense capabilities. This show of strength reflects the confidence of a country which is ready to shrug off the tag of being a net importer of weaponry and realize its potential of becoming a global defense manufacturing hub, and not to mention India's intention to combat any threat that arises from its neighborhood. And our next story is about China's murky web of espionage. It's slowly becoming more and more sophisticated. And it is in the headlines once again. This time, for trying to infiltrate American devices. You heard that right. A new report says that in recent months, the US government launched an operation to fight a pervasive Chinese hacking operation which compromised thousands of internet-connected devices. The revelation has been made by two Western security officials and one person familiar with the matter. And they say that in recent months, the US Justice Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation received legal authorization to remotely disable aspects of the Chinese hacking campaign. The group behind this campaign has been dubbed as Volt Typhoon. It apparently tried to disrupt critical communications infrastructure between the US and Asia. The campaign initially came to light in May 2023 when the hackers expanded the scope of their operations. They tried targeting the NSA and other security agencies. The attacks were aimed at crippling America's communications, manufacturing, utility, transportation, construction, maritime, government, information technology, education sectors, and such breaches would have enabled China to remotely disrupt important facilities in the Indo-Pacific region, facilities that in some form support or service US military operations. And the hackers also tried to hurt US readiness in case of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. And this is what an expert familiar with the matter said, and I'm quoting. How it works is the Chinese are taking control of a camera or modem that is positioned geographically right next to a port or ISP, and then using that destination to route their intrusions into the real target to the IT team at the downstream target. It just looks like a normal native user that's sitting nearby. The US may have been able to counter this hacking campaign, but there is no guarantee that there will not be more such attempts. Just have a look at the report coming up on your screen. It says China has raised a private army of hackers to help it discover vulnerabilities in overseas computer networks. And as part of the plan, Chinese state institutions issue rewards for finding cybersecurity vulnerabilities in software that is often used by foreign governments. And observers are calling it a subtle new form of state-backed cyber warfare. At the same time, China is also promoting young cybersecurity engineers in a doubling of its efforts to probe foreign systems for areas that the Chinese government can exploit. And that's not even all. China has also approved this year's first batch of large language models, or LLMs. This is the technology which is used to train ChatGPT and similar services. And reports say a total of 14 LLM and enterprise applications were recently given the green light by the authorities for commercial use. And this basically takes the total number of government-approved LLMs and related applications in China to more than 40. What will China use these models for? To help its people or against foreign governments? That is the big question, because every technological advancement in China seems to come with a catch. Is this one any different? Who knows? Will the United Kingdom recognize the Palestinian State? This question is buzzing in Western capitals, courtesy David Cameron, the Foreign Secretary of Britain. Yes, he has said that the UK is indeed considering recognizing Palestine. The remarks were made on Monday at a private reception in London. And during that event, Cameron said that Britain is ready to bring forward a proposal that would formally recognize the Palestinian State. Let me quote his exact remarks first. The Palestinian people would have to be shown irreversible progress towards a two-state solution. As that happens, we with allies will look at the issue of recognizing a Palestinian state, including at the United Nations. That could be one of the things that helps to make this process irreversible. And that's not all. Cameron also urged Israel to allow more humanitarian support into Gaza. He further added that it was ludicrous that vital British and other aid was being sent back to the border. He said that the last 30 years had been a story of failure for Israel, apparently because it had failed to provide security to its citizens, and only by recognizing that failure would there be peace and progress. Remember, the UK has long supported a two-state solution, a solution where Israelis and Palestinians could live side by side in separate countries. But this time, what Cameron is basically suggesting is that Britain could give formal and diplomatic recognition to a Palestinian state. At the same time, he is suggesting that there would have to be a new Palestinian authority with technocratic and good leaders who are able to govern Gaza. But the question is Israel interested in such a plan? Well, last week, during a meeting in Jerusalem, Cameron had pushed Netanyahu for a two-state solution in order to bring peace for both Israelis and the Palestinian people. But Netanyahu had rebuffed the plan. He called it an attempt to coerce Israel. He said that the plan could endanger the state of Israel. This time, Cameron seems more firm about the plan. In fact, the very timing of his proposal is striking, to say the least. This week, Cameron will make his fourth visit to West Asia since being appointed Foreign Secretary in November 2023. The visit will start with Oman, where Cameron is expected to call for stability amid the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. As the UK makes these efforts, Israel is also conducting peace talks with Hamas on its own. The talks primarily revolve around the calls for a ceasefire and the release of all hostages from Hamas's custody. And how are these talks faring, you ask? Well, the Israeli Prime Minister's office says that the most recent round of talks was quite constructive. It was talking about a four-way meeting involving the US, Israel, Qatar and Egypt that took place in Europe. The office added that there were still gaps regarding the peace deal to be adopted for a ceasefire and the release of hostages, but that these issues may get ironed out this week itself. The meeting is believed to have been held in Paris. In attendance were the Director of Central Intelligence Agency, William Burns, David Barnea, the head of the Mossad Intelligence Agency, the Qatari Prime Minister, and the Egyptian Intelligence Chief. So, on one hand, Israel is considering striking peace with Hamas. On the other, the UK is considering recognizing the Palestinian state, notwithstanding that Israel is against this. So could the UK's plan disrupt the peace talks? Could it pull Israel away from the negotiating table? Only time will tell. start the next story by asking the viewers this question. If you had $56 billion, what would you do with all that money? Would you buy a house, a high-rise, or an island all for yourself? Would you keep some and donate the rest to charity? What does $56 billion even look like? Will you be satisfied if you earn that much money? You won't, you can't, because ordinary citizens like you and me struggle to keep a tight grip on our purse strings. But billionaires don't have to worry about that, you see. If a $56 billion paycheck is unimaginable for you, you are not alone. It is too much. And that is precisely what an American court has said. When they came to know how much Elon Musk makes at Tesla. On Tuesday, a court in Delaware ruled in favor of investors who challenged Musk's $56 billion pay package. The judges essentially ruled that his salary was excessive. For scale, Musk's paycheck is 6 times larger than the combined pay of 200 of the highest paid executives of 2021. The judges said that his compensation was inappropriately set by the Tesla board, and the court has now struck down his pay package. It has been voided. But Musk was brazen. Responding to the ruling, Musk said on the platform X, never incorporate your company in the state of Delaware. Now, if only the wealth divide could be solved by this sense of humor. The ruling comes 5 years after a shareholder lawsuit. It targeted the Tesla CEO Musk and the directors. They were accused of breaching their duties, which resulted in what has been described as waste of corporate assets. They say it led to unjust enrichment for Elon Musk. The plaintiffs argued the pay package was dictated by Musk and was the product of sham negotiations with the directors who were not independent of Musk. The order from the Delaware court sent Tesla shares down more than 4% in aftermarket trading. It dealt a big blow to Musk as he seeks billions of dollars of investment for a new artificial intelligence company. The Delaware judge overseeing the case, Kathleen McCormick, said that Musk controlled the board through his personality and influence. This even with just a 22% stake in Tesla. The board could not show the share grant had been done at a fair price and through fair process. Now, if the ruling is upheld and Musk's remuneration plan is scrapped, he will lose options. Over 303 million Tesla shares, that is close to 10% of the company. It would leave his stake at 13%. It is well below his goal of 25% ownership. And this could also endanger Musk's position as the world's one of the world's richest men. At the start of this year, Forbes said that he has a fortune of $251 billion. And speaking of money, let's now tell you about someone who is in the news. How much is too much? And speaking of wealth, it depends on who you ask. Some would say it's never too much. And tonight, as a part of our special segment, Gravitas Snapshot, we are getting you the story of Malaysia's new king. His name is Sultan Ibrahim, and he is wealthy to say the least. How much wealth are we talking about? Well, $5.7 billion, that's the estimated wealth. He reportedly has over 300 luxury cars. 300. Also motorbikes, private jets, and wait for it, his family has a private army. A private army. Now, here's a quick backgrounder here for those of you who might be unaware. Malaysia practices a unique form of monarchy. it is rotational. What does that mean? Basically, the heads of the country's 9 royal families take turns to be king for a 5-year reign. Sultan Ibrahim was sworn in on Wednesday. He is 65 years old and hails from the southern state of Johor. He also reportedly owns $4 billion worth of land in Singapore. Now, let me ask you this. How much is your investment portfolio worth? Well, wait till you hear about his. It stands at $1.1 billion. And apart from his wealth, he is also known for being outspoken, and this sets him apart from his predecessors, by the way. He is known for his views on governance. He is believed to have influence on domestic as well as foreign policy as well. In fact, he is known to have strong connections with Singapore's leadership. And his alliances with Chinese investors mean business opportunities, which in turn means that he is an important figure as far as the economic landscape is concerned. His business interests, by the way, range from real estate to mining. And just how powerful is the king really in Malaysia? What kind of powers does he have? The monarch plays a largely ceremonial role, but a series of political shocks in recent years forced the monarchy to play a greater role. The king also has the power to pardon convicted people. Basically, the monarchy has become more influential in recent years due to prolonged political instability, during which the king has wielded rarely used discretionary powers. It is the 31st of January and winter is far from over here in Delhi. It is currently around 13 degrees Celsius. It is pouring, it's been pouring cats and dogs, which means that the temperature will likely drop further. And what explains this extended winter? What do you think? Climate change. Now, it did not snow in Kashmir for the longest time this winter, by the way. We have been showing you pictures of a snow-less Gulmarg. It finally started snowing in parts of Kashmir 5 days ago. The snow that was supposed to fall in early winters during what's called the 40-day period ending January 31 is falling now. The drop in temperature that snow was supposed to bring in the early winters is happening now, which means an extended winter for this part of the country. This January was anyway Delhi's coldest in 21 years. It recorded 10 extreme weather events. There were 5 cold days, 5 cold wave days. Now, how do you define a cold day? When the minimum temperature is below 10 degrees. A cold wave is when the minimum temperature is 4 notches or more below the normal. And this January, the mean maximum temperature in Delhi was just 17.9 degrees Celsius. This is only the third time in 33 years that January's mean maximum temperature has stayed below 18 degrees Celsius. The other 2 years instances were in 2003 and 2015. This is as per the data of India's Met Department. Long story short, if you are watching us from Delhi and you are thinking of packing away your winter garments, we advise, hold your horses. Our next story is about a Tik Tok sensation, something that took social media by storm, something that became a symbol of status. Everyone queued up to buy it pretty much, from influencers to corporate girlies. I'm talking about Stanley Cups. For those of you who might not be aware, this is what they look like. They have essentially become the Louis Vuitton of drinkware. These thirst quenchers are available in all colors, prints, designs, but its latest pastel range is what made it viral on TikTok. Buyers just could not resist the pinks, mauves, purples. Each Stanley Cup sells for $50 online, and those who could not get their hands on the originals made do with the realistic mock-ups. But now the insulated tumblers have come under fire. I don't mean to scare you, but these seemingly innocent cups are dangerous. How exactly? Because they contain lead, as per reports. TikTokers have themselves discovered it through at-home tests. Dozens of Stanley sippers have posted videos claiming that the cups have tested positive for lead. And following the videos, the company also spoke out. Stanley issued a statement admitting that lead is indeed used in manufacturing the viral tumblers. So how much should you as a consumer worry about this? Lead exposure has well-documented health consequences, especially for children. The World Health Organization has said it. There is no known safe blood lead concentration. Even minuscule amounts found in blood could lead to decreased intelligence in children, behavioral difficulties, and learning problems. And there's more. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, lead exposure can also lead to growth, hearing, and speech problems. It can even damage the brain and the nervous system. In adults, lead exposure can lead to high blood pressure, cardiovascular issues, and more. It's dangerous for pregnant women because lead can be transferred to a developing fetus. It is also associated with a high risk of miscarriage. Not to forget, lead poisoning can be fatal. So do you want to risk all of it by using a Stanley Cup? Now, it's good to hop on trends, but it's better to take care of your health, isn't it? Trends come and go. Stanley's time might just be over. A social media influencer just told her followers to throw away their Stanley Cups. Tori Halford opened her video by tossing 4 Stanley Cups into a trash bag. Quote unquote, this is your sign to get rid of all your Stanleys. That's what she said. Why? Because something better is now available in the market. That's what the influencer claimed. And she then introduced 4 brightly colored hydro jugs. She also shared how she believes the tumblers are better than Stanley Cups. So if you see people going bonkers over hydro jugs instead of Stanleys, you heard it here first. As is clear from the trends, we have reached a scary level of consumerism. Few years ago, it was the hydro flask. Today, it's the Stanley Cup. Tomorrow, it could be hydro jugs. It's all a play of moment marketing. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Good night.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North